You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MIAX is proud to bring you Spikes Volatility products. Spikes options and futures are traded on the Spikes Volatility Index, SPIKE, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's volatility reimagined. Learn more about Spikes at miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. Volatility Views is also brought to you by Matrix Executions, LLC, an agency broker-dealer focused on best execution in trading workflow automation. A technology-driven firm, Matrix is led by trading pioneers with decades of experience designing and building best-in-class solutions for options markets. Matrix connects to all domestic exchange venues and multiple international exchanges and serves both institutional and individual clients. For more information on Matrix Executions, LLC, please visit matrixexecutions.com. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Friday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know where volatility is? Well, let's find it together. It is time for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever-compelling, at least we tend to think so, especially this week. A lot of new fun wrinkles hitting the old Options Insider Radio Network. We kicked it off with the epic, the mega, the crazy Option Block 1000th episode. Spectacular, of course, added the new wrinkle that a lot of you are loving these days, Options Insider Plus and Pro. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, check it out over there on the site, theoptionsinsider.com/shop. Best place to go to find all of it. Breakdown for both what we're doing, what cool new bells and whistles we're adding, and all sorts of fun stuff. Pretty much quick summarization here. If you really like the live streams, like to get stuff in your ear holes right away, don't like waiting for the podcast, then, of course, the Plus is going to be for you. Going to put more stuff out there. And then, of course, if you like exclusive stuff that nobody else gets but you and your hot little ear holes, then Pro is going to be for you. We're going to kick off some fun stuff next week, including our first ever expert Q&A session. These are going to be fun. You guys have been bombarding us with questions since we started doing this over 14 years ago. So we thought, why not encapsulate that and really let you guys come at us? So we're going to line up all sorts of fun people to field your questions left, right, and center starting next Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. Even people who haven't signed up next week get to try that one out for free because it's fun. And you get to see what all the fun is going to be about. Then, of course, the much anticipated return of Options Oddities next Friday. We'll see if I can drag him kicking and screaming the Rock Lobster to make a fun guest appearance on that inaugural episode. 'Cause I know he has some fond memories of that show as well. A lot of fun stuff. TheOptionInsider.com/shop is the place to go to learn all about it. And let's see who we're going to hear from on the old program today. Let's go out first to the land of Texas, a.k.a. the Matrix Hot Seat, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, it's great to be here. Lovely day, crazy day, but enjoying it nonetheless.
It is a weird one. I'm glad to see you recovered. I've given you a full week. Have you recovered from the Option Block 1000th episode spectacular, sir?
I have not. That was quite spectacular, I'll be honest.
It was pretty fun. We couldn't all do it in person like we used to, but still fun to get the band together virtually. Nonetheless, 1,000 episodes. That's insane of anything, listeners. So certainly a milestone that we had to celebrate. And also, speaking of celebration, let's keep the party going. Let's bring back our old friend, a.k.a. Mr. Short Vol, a.k.a. Mr. Dave Lincoln, the host over there, the Short Vol Show / Vol Crush, for the first time here in 2021. In fact, I don't think it's been almost a year since you've joined us, Mr. Lincoln. Welcome back to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think it's been since we had your big spectacular for, what was it, Election Day, something like that? So it's great to be back.
Well, that's true. You were on with us in November. That's true. You were on with that. So on this show was last summer, but on the election show. But still, first time in 2021. Not much vol has really happened this year. You haven't missed a lot, Dave. Not much at all. As we keep on rolling right on into the volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Vol Review, the portion of the show where we do exactly what the name says. We look back at the week that was and indeed still is, from a vol trading and trending and analysis and unusual activity and all sorts of fun perspectives. And kicking off the show here in markets, yet again, it's been a series of green days on the screen. Is what we got yet again today. It's not exactly 1.5%, 2% to the upside, but it's still looking pretty firmly in the green. NASDAQ leading the charge right now, about 0.6%. S&P and the Dow up about 0.33%. Of course, we are, heading into the long holiday weekend, the Memorial Day weekend here in the U.S. So no shows on Monday, listeners. Markets are closed. No OB, no crypto rundown, unfortunately. But, it's always the discussion whenever there's a long holiday weekend, when they're going to start coming for this vol. And they didn't mess around this week. They started coming for it pretty early. We were talking about it yesterday on how they were just smacking stuff left and right. Coming into today's show, now kicking off the show, we had spikes at about 16 3/4. It puts it down pretty much exactly 4 points from where it was last show, north of a 20 handle last week. VIX cash, same deal, off a little more, actually, down about 4.25 points. It was at about a 16.25 when we kicked off the show. And VVIX at about a 105. That's down 17 points from where it was last Friday. Of course, a lot of vol coming out here as we're heading into the weekend. A lot to unpack. We'll start with you, Mr. Lincoln. We actually got the right guy on the show today because it's kind of been short vol has been the name of the game all week. What has been lighting up your tape out there as the quote-unquote vol crushes in, sir?
Well, I mean, we've seen a continuation to the downside, as you've talked about, flirting with breaking through that 16 level in the VIX cash. We've also seen kind of the aftermath of the UVXY split. There's been some unwinding of positions in there as we, tell our different clients about strategizing around the split and coming out of that. But yeah, just as you've mentioned, we've seen vol come out. And there's been focus on, kind of periphery of the market, the memes and the cryptos, of course, as the marketplace becomes sort of larger and larger.
We have the right guy on the show for two reasons, because not only is it vol crush time, but also it's UVXY back in the headlines. I have maligned you somewhat unfairly for the better part of the past year, being one of the last of the Mohegans out there slinging UVXY. But suddenly, Dave, UVXY is cool again. You're one of the cool kids again, sir.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but definitely there's been some renewed interest as, it's kind of hard to trade an underlying when you've got a 4 handle on it. So a little bit more sort of wiggle room, I guess you could say, now that we're back up in the 35 numbers, although, we could see it go back down below 10 in the next few months if things continue the way they've been going.
Yeah, at this pace, look out below on both of them, VXX and UVXY. You want a little more on both of those? Stay tuned, listeners. We'll get to all the universe of vol ETPs in a little bit. First, let's go back out to the land of Texas, now slowly becoming a volatility mecca, as it seems like everyone's just picking up and moving to Texas these days. Mr. Meatball, sir, what's been lighting up your tape on a week when long vol hasn't exactly been loving you?
Yeah, it's been a good. If you're long vol the meme stocks, it's been great. If you're long vol anything else, it's been really, really bad. I'm looking at a VIX that if it would be the low close since the pandemic here, I believe. If we got here, the lowest close post-pandemic was on April 16th, and that was 1625. So right now we're about 1620. So we're at a new low if we close here. Don't be surprised if we even break 16 as the day progresses, as we head into this long weekend and you get some VIX weekend effect. Vol futures have already mostly priced in the weekend. They're not doing a lot today. Well, I'm sure we'll get to vol futures in a second. But yeah, it's been a great vol day for meme and a bad vol day for everything else.
Yeah, it's an interesting one out there. And that's a good point. I was kind of only half mocking the Rock Lobster yesterday on the option block when he thought we might see a 15 hand. I thought it was potentially possible, but you never know these days. Usually the way the pattern has played out, you get a few days of green on the screen, then all of a sudden something happens. Yellen goes boo or something else. And then there we go. We get some vol back in. We didn't get that moment this week. We didn't get the vol coming back in moment, which is kind of interesting. So it has kind of been all erosion all the time. Yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe even by the end of the show, we could see a 15 handle, which is something we have not seen in quite some time in VIX land. Remember how excited everyone got a few months ago when we finally broke the 20 handle, 15 handle. I don't know. Do you want to go much farther than that? I don't want to exactly revisit the dark days of 2017 when we were hanging out at like a 9 for the better part of the year. So interesting stuff afoot. I think there's enough things going on out there, enough things in the mix to keep us, I think, a little bit above a 9. Let's get out to the futures land, see what's going on out there in the VIX futures term structure. No surprise, they're all lower since the last show. We've got the June future coming into showtime. It's about exactly 3 points lower than it was this time last week. The July future, a little bit less, about not even 1.2, about 1.15 points. And we got the AUG future actually coming in a little bit too, down over 2, about 2.25 points out there. So interesting little blips out there in the front portion of the term structure. You used to talk about how it used to plateau at the October expiration. That seemed to be kind of the apex of the plateau. Now that we've moved down the curve a little bit, we're seeing that plateau actually coming at the end now. So I don't know if it really is a plateau. It's more, I guess, kind of an apex at the end there. That's at the Feb future now, which is at almost a 23.80 right now. That's kind of the high for the term structure. So the AUG future is still only at about a 23 right now. So a little bit of interesting evolution. Dave, anything lighting up your tape out there in the land of VIX futures this week, sir?
Well, I would call the term structure very healthy. We're seeing just below 10% contango between the June and July futures, which, as we know, are really what VXX, UVXY are composed of. And like you said, there's not, usually there's a little bit of a dimple in December because there's more vacations and stuff, but the back part of it looks very smooth out there. And obviously back out in the farther reaches of the term structure, there's not a whole lot of activity, but it just looks like a very healthy curve. There's no signs of trouble out there as far as I see it as it is right now. I think what Mark was talking about before, that there's been this sort of period of time where the VIX has just been post-COVID. When do we switch off of that into the next period? Because now we're still coming down off of COVID. It remains to be seen where we make a bottom here in the VIX, and then we kind of move on to the next period in time.
A post-COVID VIX, a question a lot of people have been asking for the better part of a year out there. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. Looking at this term structure, it's not quite the plateaued towards the end beast like we used to see pretty much throughout most of the rest of 2021 here. A little bit different, and obviously coming off pretty aggressively this week as well. Let's lighten up your tape out there in the land of VIX futures, sir.
Yeah, we're getting a pretty nice contango here. I mean, really nice. And with the VIX at 17 or at 1620 and the June future hanging around 1860, obviously they're pricing in some weekend. When we come in on Tuesday, the VIX, let's say we close 16, it'll be back up around 17. So about $1, call it $1.60 anticipated spread between June and cash. Pretty wide, given that we'll only have a couple weeks left in it. July still over 20. Looking for that to come in. But yeah, you've got a really nice steepening curve where we have a relatively steep contango all the way out to November before it flattens up a little bit. So I'm just going to say this is a pretty normal curve, kind of what we expect, one that prices in the market going up and volatility continue to come off. I think that UVXY that's going to be bad for UVXY and VXX as well. And we could see some of these cheap VIX puts that are having a little bit of a bid. I know we'll get to VIX options here in a second, but there's this SKEW in VIX options has shifted today where puts are a little more expensive and calls are a little cheap. And that is because, I don't know that I would want to sell the June 15 puts at a nickel. I wouldn't. And I'm not sure I want to sell those 17 puts that are 60 cents when they're already 80 cents in the money. So lots out there to digest. And yeah, I think the market is pricing these VIX futures to continue to come off.
That does seem to be the case. It only took the better part of half a year, and now we finally have a somewhat normal volatility surface out there. Of course, now that I say that, all bets are off. Here we go. Craziness back out to a 30 in the VIX, dogs and cats living together. So watch out above, probably maybe below, but watch out above these days. Let's go on out now, see what's lighting it up in the options realm. Let's start in the land of spikes. The spikes OI still kind of dominated by that sizable three-way that went up a few weeks ago. Well, actually, I think it was a two-way, and then we have the extra leg out there from another trade, which was, let's go top three. Why not? Let's go July 50s. That's number 3 position out there. 5 O's. That's been open for a little bit. I kind of joked about how optimistic that was, but it's been open for a little bit now, and it's certainly a little bit different than the person who sold those May 40s not too long ago. I think they sold them for about a nickel. That one put the hairs on the back of my neck, made them stand up a little bit. Then we have, looks like a June ratio, not quite a 1x2, 1x1.5. The June 25 puts against the June 15 call, June 50, 5-0 calls. And those are your top positions out there in Spike's land. Bit of a risk reversal. That 25 put obviously looking pretty rich right now as opposed to when they put it on. Speaking of things looking rich, or perhaps not as rich, VIX options today, not exactly lighten things up. It seems like most people got their stuff done earlier in the week and now are getting the heck out of Dodge for the long weekend because only about 227,000 contracts on the tape right now. That hasn't stopped the ADV from shooting up this week, though. It's threatening 600K, 589,000 right now. It's up about 31,000. So as you might imagine, a decently active week out here. Let's start before we get to the options activity day by day. Let's start breaking down the top 10 positions. And it has swung markedly out there. For a long time, we were remarking about how crazy and weird and aberrant it was that puts were dominating the OI in VIX. It's not the way the product was designed. It's not what the typical use case is out there yet. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was 80-20 puts over calls in the top 10 in VIX land. Now, a much more healthy, a much more, shall we say, equidistant 50-50 calls versus puts out there in the top 10 right now. Read into that what you will. Are we at a healthy equilibrium in VIX land? Are we going to teeter here for a while? Or is this just the calm before the storm in one direction or the other? We shall find out. It only cost you 142,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That isn't a ton, all things considered. That gets you, again, to the 50 strike. They love the 50s in July in Spike, and they love the 50s in June in VIX. Number 9. 158,000 of the June 21 puts. Number 8, 162,000 of the June 15 puts. Number 7, $1.66 of the June 30s. Number 6, $1.67 of the June 60s, 6-0. So here we are, almost got to get all the way up to number 5 before you break 200,000 out there, listeners. That gets you to 209,000 of the June 17 puts. Also for number 4, also 209,000 of the June 16 puts. Number 3, 224,000 of the June 18 puts. Numero dos here, you know what the number 2 and number 1 are. Even though number 1 has extended itself a little bit, it's still that July vertical, the 25-40 vertical, 253,000 for the 40s, 271,000 for the 25s. So they didn't take it off last week. They sure as hell ain't taking it off this week, listeners. They're going to wait a little bit on this bad boy. Let's see. Let's break down a few days here, then we'll go around the horn and see what's been catching people's eyes out here from a VIX options perspective. Like we said, today, kind of a light day, only 227,000 contracts on the tape. The most active contract today, about 31,000 of the AUG 32 half. So going out to AUG, followed by 15,000 for number 2 of the AUG 22s, 16,000 almost for number 3 of the June 17 puts, number 4, 14,000 of the June 18 puts, and round out the top 5 today, July 50s, yet again, 10,000 of those bad boys out there. Yesterday was a more active day. In fact, it was the most active day of the week, 818,000. So no days this week really threatening that 1M level, but he got closest on Thursday. The most active contract yesterday, 112,000 of the June 17 puts, followed by 80,000 for number 2 of the Nove 60s, number 3, 41,000 of the June 18 puts, number 4, 40,000 almost exactly of the AUG 42 halves. And rounding out the top 5 here on Thursday, 32,000 of the June 16 puts. Out to Wednesday, a little bit less volume, but still a decent amount, 569. The most active contract on Wednesday, 75,000 of the June 18 puts. Number 2, 56,000 of the June 17 puts. Number 3, a little bit of a pattern on Wednesday, 48,000 of the June 16 puts. Number 4, about 30,000 of the June 20 puts. And round out the top 5, a nice little healthy put strip there, 28,000 of the June 19 puts. Tuesday, a pretty anemic day, only 250,000 contracts on the tape. The most active contracts, 13, almost 14,000 of the June 21 puts, 12,000 of the June 18 puts, 10,000 of the July, 17 puts. And then 4 and 5, we got the July 23 calls and 23 puts, each doing about 9,500 contracts. Monday, about 446,000 contracts on the tape. The most active contract on Monday, about 31,000 of the June 18 puts. That strike that month, pretty active this week, followed by about 28,000 of the June 60s, again, 6-0. Number 3, 22,000 of the October 20 calls. Number 4, 21,000 of the June 30 calls expiring on the 2nd. So these are in the weeklies. And then 21,000 of the June 20 puts. A lot to unpack, even though some of the days, Dave, this week were a little bit quieter than we've seen of late, notably today and indeed Tuesday. But there were some hot spots this week, Dave. What VIX options activity came across your radar and lit up your tape this week, sir?
Well, actually, I'm just investigating right now. It looks like around 12:30 today, a vertical went up. It looks like the 18 August 2232 1x2 call vertical went up. So they were buying the August 22 and selling the 32 against it. So one August 22, 2 of the 32s for a slight credit. It looks like it went up 352 versus 180. So 8 cents credit. That seems kind of interesting to me. I just think, like you alluded to, things are coming back a little bit into line now that we're moving back into, dare I say, quote unquote, a more normal range. We're seeing people gun shy a little bit on the puts and starting to, go back on the call side. As you know, I'm not a huge VIX option trader, but I do like to keep abreast of it just to see what's going on.
That's you doing that 1x3. You can be honest with us here, Dave. Yeah, I'm looking at this trade right now. You're right. It looks like it went up not that long ago, actually. It's the AUG 22s going up for 352 10,000 times. It seems like against 3 30,000 of the AUG 32 halves for $1.80. That's a bit of an interesting one. Looks like paper is buying one and selling three. There's got to be another leg against it. I don't have to go look and see. Maybe he's just long a ton of futures against it. A little bit of a aggressive futures repair strategy, perhaps. Mr. Meatball, what are your thoughts on what appears to be a 1x3 out here, as well as anything else catching your eye out here this week, sir?
Yeah, VIX has been pretty darn busy this week. A lot of like weird diagonal type trades where they're, buying like something near the money and selling, not super near the money, but like buying August and September calls are in between 40 and 50 and then trying to sell long dated, 80, 90, and the likes of that to finance it. So we're seeing some of that kind of crash hedging start to return to the market. Overall, we've got some pretty busy put trading today. On a relative note, the 18 puts are active, so are the 17s. We've been seeing the 18-17 put spread go up a lot. Also seeing some action in July puts. Kind of across the board, been a lot of put buyers. That's what is pushing up SKEW. So was a pretty strong shift in VIX SKEW today. And by that, I mean puts went up and calls went down a little bit. So that to me is a bit of an eye raiser and shows that we've got some paper moving in and trying to play vol to drop. Now on this AUG 1x3, that's almost exactly what it looks like. They looks like they did the you know what? It's 1x2. Dave pointed out that they bought 5,000 of the AUG 22s for $352. They bought then 10,000 milliseconds later for $352, and then almost a second later, 0.8 of a second, they sold 30,000 of the AUG 32.5s at $1.80. So taking in an 8-cent credit on the bull 1x2 in August.
Yeah, now I see that other 5,000 lot in there as well. Still 1x2. That could certainly make some sense if you got some futures that have been beaten up. Might be a way. You always talk about stock repair. We don't talk about futures repair as much, Mr. Meatball.
No, we do not. I mean, it's an interesting little play if we get a kind of a mini VIX swell and we see VIX sometime in August get back to 20. This could pay out okay. I don't love the 8 cents they collected. I think that this was a much better sale a few days ago when the VIX was 19. Don't know that I love this trade as a 1x2 when the VIX is at a 1-year low.
Yeah, obviously this would have been a little bit better a few sessions ago. Sometimes I guess you got to take what you can get. Speaking of things that are looking a little bit better right now, I guess it depends on your perspective. You like it lower, then you're happy because VXX and UVXY are certainly accommodating you this week. VXX come into showtime was at about a 34. That puts it down 5.25 points from this time last. I mean, we've got up to 45 not that long ago. You're talking about a 10-point swing in about less than 10 days, listeners. So this thing is moving again out there. So I know people complain it's very juicy, it's very pricey, it's very expensive to trade things out there. And you are correct, but it's also hard to argue that it is not warranted given these extreme movements we're seeing out here. This thing is all over the place all the time, which makes it fun to trade and interesting, and also could be a little bit dangerous. You can get run over in some of these extended moves in one direction. Today, decent paper, 122,000 contracts on the tape. Looks like the ADV has finally stabilized. We're up about 5,000 from last week, up to about 187,000. So it seems like maybe it's finding its footing. Some of those symbology issues that seem to be dogging its heels of late, maybe finally going the way of the dodo. We're also starting to see some actual strikes that are relevant in VXX as opposed to all those kind of old legacy VXX1 strikes starting to take some spots in the top 10. You'll see what I mean in a second, listeners. Let's break down the top 10 here. Again, most of these are still dominated by the old school strikes of the old VXX1, so your 10s, your 11s, all that fun stuff. But we got a few relevant strikes popping in here again. Number 10, we got 19,000 of the June 30 puts. These, again, are a strike you've heard of. Strike might be trading right now. So interesting stuff. Then number 9, we go back to the old days, VXX1 days, 21,000 of the June 10 puts. Number 8, 21,000 as well. June 15 puts. Number 7, 21,000 of the June 11 puts. Number 6, back to regular old school VXX, 22,000 of the June 35 puts. Then number 5, 23,000 of the SEP 9 puts. Number 4, 23,000 of the June 20 calls. Number 3, 25K of the June 9 puts. And then numero dos and uno here. We got a couple of calls. The June 11s for 30,000 and 33,000 of the SEP 10s. Those bad boys not going anywhere for a little while. But we'll start seeing some other OI replace it. We already saw a lot of the May obviously roll off the board. And now won't be too long before some of these other positions start catching up. And we'll have some more strikes you're probably actually trading right now, dominating the top 10. Today, again, not the most active of days. The most active contract out there today in VXX are the May weeklies going out today. 33 half puts, about 13,000 of those have traded so far, followed by about 6,000 for number 2 of the June 31 puts, 5,000 for number 3 of the May 34 puts, 5,000 as well for number 4 of the July 30 puts. And rounding our top 5 in VXX these days, May 33 puts. These are the ones going out today in the weeklies with about 5,000 as well. Mr. Dave, I know you like your vol ETPs that erode aggressively. VXX has certainly been fitting that bill out there. What's been catching your eye? Have you been impressed / amazed / terrified by the aggressive movements we've seen in VXX since its reverse split, sir?
Well, it certainly is a change from what we had last year. I mean, I was looking back, and if you had put a position on in October of a year ago, a year later, you would have made no ground in VXX. So we've actually seen things come back in a nice way to the downside here. Which is certainly encouraging. I've been just reminding viewers that if you do have positions in those old strikes, the pre-split strikes, that might be better to get out of some of those sooner rather than later, as there's going to be less and less liquidity in those older strikes as time goes by. As you alluded to, there was a 2 trades today. There was a roll, the 18 June 31 puts, which they sold, and they bought the 2 July 30 puts against them. And this is kind of mirroring the activity we saw in the actual VIX, where it appears that they are owning out of the money puts to the downside, which typically we weren't seeing for a long period of time, but they appear to have rolled to a lower strike farther out of the money. This I think it's like around a 5,000 lot total of puts in VXX today.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. You're right. We're used to VXX maybe being a little bit sleepier. You put on the typical trade in VXX used to be what you put on the Jan, whatever, pick your strike out of the money put, and you kind of set it and forget it. I mean, you could be a little bit more active with it, obviously, but these days you can't set and forget anything out there. This thing's whipsawing 10 handles in a couple of sessions. So if you're not careful, you'll get run over in either direction. So the old sleepy days, at least for now in VXX, have gone the way of the dodo. Mr. Meatball, what's lighting up your tape and the tape of your crazies in the pit over there this week in VXX, sir?
Yeah, going into this stuff, going into the reverse split, we had some pretty nice long puts in VXX, paid out pretty well. It's priced to lose about 22 to 24 cents a day. So there's a pretty nice contango there, pretty nice daily decay. And we're seeing some pretty busy option trading, traders buying, the July 30 puts. They're buying some of the May 33 and a halves. So been seeing a lot of put activity in VXX, which makes sense because that's the way to play it. Definitely a little active today. I haven't seen any weird, useless call buys today, though. Although they are active, just not seeing a lot of out of the money hedging in VXX. Maybe some people have learned their lesson.
Useless call buying. Well, if you get them, maybe people are looking for that next Yellen / whatever it is pop. But if you get them, you got to get out of them pretty quick. I think we've all learned that lesson fairly aggressively over the course of the past couple of weeks. Now, Dave, it is the moment. I know you've been waiting the entire show. You've been waiting pretty much all year to come on to talk about this product. I have maligned you in the past for kind of being the last guy out there waving the flag for UVXY. But now, the moment you have waited for has arrived. UVXY has finally come home to roost. We've seen the reverse split. Everyone's been saying, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? We finally saw it this week. Coming in to kick off the show, UVXY was at a 35. Yeah, a strike you can actually do something with, listeners. That's up a whopping 31.6 points from where it was this time last show, and it was kind of just languishing around that 4 handle. The ADV about 316. It's down a little bit, down about 9,000 from our last show. But as we've all seen, these reverse splits tend to cause some issues with legacy quotes and things. So we'll probably see something similar to UVXY that we saw in VXX, where there's some hiccups in the volume for at least a few weeks. Seen that out there today as well. Only 59,000 contracts on the tape. But Dave, here it is. The moment you've been waiting for. How excited are you for all things UVXY these days, sir?
Well, I'm incredibly impressed that you actually have the top 10 positions in UVXY here.
Just for you, Dave. Just for you, I did that.
The focus on UVXY is impressive.
For you and the one other guy who trades it, it's all about you guys today, sir.
I'm most impressed.
All right, let's get into it then. Let's break down those aforementioned top positions out here in UVXY. Again, we got that similar scenario to VXX. We got the old UVXY1. So we got some legacy strikes that, as Dave pointed out, if you have some positions in these, it probably behooves you to get the heck out of Dodge sooner rather than later, because liquidity is not going to get better in these. It's only going to get lighter and lighter. Let's do a top 10 here. Number 10, 17,000 of the June 13 calls. Number 9, 18,500 of the June 5s. Number 8, this is probably my favorite here, 19,600 of the June pars, a.k.a. the 100 calls. So this guy has, about a few weeks to get to the 100 strike in UVXY. And this is pre-split. Number 7, 20,000 of the May 4 calls. These are going out today, so those will be gone soon. Number 6, 25,000 of the June 14s. Number 5, 29, just a tick under 30,000 of the May 5s, again going out today. Number 4, 31,000 of the June 10s. Number 3, 40K of the May 8s. Number 2, 46, almost 47,000 of the June 5s. A little bit more reasonable strike than the pars. And rounding out our top 10, this is going away today as well. Nearly 70,000 listeners, 67,000 of the May 4 halves expiring this afternoon. So they're going to be a very different top 10 out there in UVXY next week. And hopefully this reverse split, as well as the movement we're seeing out there. I know you guys have a lot of questions about UVXY. We'll get to those in a little bit as well. But this movement and everything else, and this just kind of a more relevant strike price, will help to drive a little bit of action. Mr. Meatball, I know you guys in the land of the pit have kind of been steering clear of UVXY for a while, and who could blame you, really? It was languishing between 4 and 4.5, not really doing a heck of a lot. Now it's back. It's at about a 35, a little bit more meat on the bone. What's been catching your eye out there in UVXY? Is it back on your radar again, sir?
Oh, yeah. We were all over it yesterday when they listed the options. I got long puts at the 37 strike, the 36.5, expiring next week. Daily decay is about 36 cents a day. So it is definitely has some real downside. If the VIX goes to like 15, this thing could be sub 30 in a week. Just really, some crazy potential for this thing to fall. I was looking at the June 11th 30 puts. They're about 38 cents. Inexpensive play on a 4th of July vol crush and UVXY taking on the chin. Some other things I'm watching are like the regular June 34 puts for about $3 and the July 30 puts for about $3 as well. All of those to me relatively inexpensive. And just for giggles, I did buy some January 2022 5 puts for about 20 cents. Those could absolutely come into play. There are not bad odds that UVXY could get to, $5 and be reverse splitting by the time we get to January, especially if we normalize in VIX and it goes to a 12.
Well, if this week is any indication, we could certainly get it. We're moving 5 handles at a clip over the course of a week. We could be at your 5 strike sooner rather than later. Mr. Dave, what are your thoughts on those? The Jan 5s for 20 cents. You diving onto that train, sir?
I think it's hilarious. I mean, it's kind of like deja vu all over again with Mark. What was the other one? Was it the Jan 10 puts and VXX or something?
Yes, everyone liked those. Yes,
that paid out. Those little baby puts way far out. A lot of times are inexpensive, and yeah, there's just plenty of room for this thing to fall. I do think that some of the easy money has been made in UVXY post split. I mean, it is off 12% this week, so. I mean, it's off 12% since it reverse split. It's just getting absolutely clubbed. I mean, it should dress up like a baby seal. It's getting clubbed so hard.
There you go. All of our PETA listeners just turned off in protest here out there. But you're right. That used to be the way everyone played these products, right? Like I alluded to earlier, VXX, UVXY, you kind of put it in the long-term kind of crazy out of the money puts, usually in Jan. That's where we saw all of that stuff line up. That's usually easier to go farther out in Jan than in the other months. And you just kind of set it and forget it. And now it sounds like you're putting a little bit of that action back on with the Jan 5s. What do you think of those, listeners? Jan 5s for 20 cents. You on board that train, or do you want to say to Mr. Meatball, sold to you? Hit us up. Let us know as we keep on rolling. Let's do a little bit of single name ball, and we'll get to some of your cues. I know you guys have questions about UVXY and everything else out there under the sun. There was some single name vol to be found this week. I know it's kind of hard to say vol was found given the annihilation. There's also a lot of vol getting annihilated as well in some of these names. Let's get to it. Let's see. Intuit on Tuesday and Nordstrom's are popping off. Wednesday, we had Dick's Sporting Goods, NVIDIA, and Snowflake. 2 hot names and for different reasons. Snowflake used to be a hot name. Seemed like it fell off the radar a little bit. Everyone was obsessed with it for a while, like all these IPOs, and they move on to the next thing. Best Buy on Thursday, Dollar General and Dollar Tree. Got the whole dollar segment going there. Medtronic, Salesforce, Costco, Hewlett-Packard, and Dell. And today we had big locks. We do have earnings move results, and earnings season reports for pretty much all these names. You can find them for yourselves. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Let's hit a couple really quickly, give you a sense of what's been going on this week, a lay of the land. Spoiler alert, the vol not kicking in this week, listeners. Let's go to Snowflake, hot IPO on everyone's radar not too long ago. It was popping off on the 26th this week after the bell, $235.25. It was pricing in 7.5%, so pretty lofty. Matt and I were talking about this on the advisor's option earlier this week. It seemed like they were pricing in a lot of juice, but we didn't really know because there's really no past history for this name, so you can't really make strong conclusions. And it turned out that they were pricing in a hell of a lot of juice because they delivered a whopping 1%, listeners. And I checked it again yesterday, and option block, it had moved even less. So, yeah, this one got all the vol squeezed out of it. NVIDIA, another one, for a long time was kind of synonymous with vol. It got really wrapped up there in the crypto space for a while. It was seen by many as the canary in the coal mine for the crypto markets. Whither goes NVIDIA, so goes crypto. And so there's a lot of vol wrapped in around their announcements, a lot of expectations. This time they went into their announcement also on the 26th, 628 even. They were pricing in 4%. They delivered a whopping 0.4%, listeners. This is kind of the theme that has been earnings season ever since the pandemic hit. You would think it would be the opposite. You would think there would be all sorts of vol to be found as these names are just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, we don't know what the hell's going on. Now we're getting a little bit more insight, and they're still crushing the vol out there. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing to behold. I've given up. I've washed my hands on predicting when the worm will turn out there. Matt, to his credit, did try earlier this month. He thought this might be the cycle. This might be the season. I think he retreated from that 2 days later. he washed his hands of it very quickly. So he's now been burned by it as well. It just seems like no one wants to hold earnings vol at these days. It just doesn't pay. And certainly the season report bears that out as well. We've averaged it down now to 73% so far on the season. And this week, one of the worst we've seen, 65%. So if you bought vol this week in some sort of aggregate basket, you got back 65 cents on the dollar, listeners. So crazy times out there as earnings vol continues to underperform. We got some more big names popping off later this week. You can check them out for yourselves. You know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com. Now it's time for you folks to take the reins. Your questions, our answers. It is time for the volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options. or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. Your cues. A lot of them have to do with these ever-eroding vol ETPs out here. Let's start with Mixberg. I like that handle, Mixberg. Mixberg wants to know, now that UVXY and VXX have both reverse split and are trading around the same level, which one do you think is the better short going forward? I had the same conversation yesterday with the Rock Lobster on the option block, but I'd be curious to see what you folks have to say about it. Let's start with Mr. Short Vol himself, Mr. Dave. What do you have to say for Mixberg here? If you had to lean super short one of these, which one you leading into, sir?
Well, I'm going to put the caveat, first of all, that I don't short volatility ETPs shorting the underlying. I use options so that I limit my risk, and I recommend other people do as well.
I'm assuming that's what he means. I'm assuming he means buy puts on these bad boys, Selko. I don't think he's talking the underlying here. If he is, he's writing into the wrong show.
Exactly. Beyond that, I tend to find more liquidity in VXX right now, and so I feel like I can get in and out of stuff when I need to. A little bit more easily and with a little bit less strategizing, maybe. So I lean towards VXX just for that reason. You can obviously replicate the 1.5 times leverage using options to overcome the fact that UVXY has more leverage if you're leaning towards that one. But I just found there's more liquidity in VXX.
Kind of hard to argue with that one. Mr. Meatball, same question for you. It sounds like you like UVXY. You got those Jan 5 puts, but if you had to, gun to your head, you had to pick one right now. Which one you picking?
I'm going UVXY. There's just so many problems with that product that, it doesn't make as much on the way up as VXX by the leverage, and it loses more on the way down. The option markets, I use options as well. I don't just go out and short the stock, but the option markets are, pretty liquid right now. You can get a lot done here. They're posting some pretty good markets. Volume's not bad. It's already traded 31,000 contracts today. So if you multiply that times 1.5, then you're talking really 45,000 VXX contracts. VXX is at about 65,000. So it is, I think that there's enough for me to get in and out. And it's just such a bad product that I can, it's not a bad product, does what it's supposed to do. It just performs miserably over the long term so well that it's a better one to short.
Yeah, I'm on both sides of that train. I tend to like the outperformance to the downside of UVXY, but in the past, I've been hampered as well by, liquidity issues out there, which is why I tend to lean VXX. But it seems like now that they both reverse split, maybe we can see a little bit of that changing. The numbers are starting to line up a little bit more. And if that's the case, UVXY becomes a little bit more attractive going forward than it has been in the past. Speaking of UVXY being attractive, Dave, this is the perfect question for you. Good thing you're on the show with us today. This next one comes in from Tags. He's got a question I think probably a lot of people have on the brain right now. We kind of touched on it throughout the show, but I want to get your synopsis as well. He says, seems like everyone is hyped about the UVXY split. Why should I care about this crappy stock? Tell him, Dave, as the sole member of the UVXY fan club, why should he care about, as he puts it, this crappy stock?
Well, it sounds like our fan club's building up at this point. Well, because it is not a stock, it's an ETP, and it is designed to be crappy, and that's why we love it. And that's, the reason that Mr. Sebastian gave why he loves it to the downside is the reason why we love it, because it is so crappy, and it does continue to perform so terribly. What Mark Sebastian was talking about that adds to the crappiness of it is that sort of drift that we have due to the fact that it's 1.5 times leveraged, that even adds on to the pile of other reasons why this continues to move lower. And so it's something where we have, this trend to the downside that we can work with. That's why we love it so much.
Yeah, I was joking. It does seem like the UVXY fan club is growing. You're going to have more members. Hope you got to jack up your membership fees, Dave, because I think more folks are going to be coming your way. Perhaps even Tags. If you've been listening to the show, Tags, you've kind of heard some of the reasons why. To the downside, UVXY is perhaps a more attractive instrument now that it has reverse split. Hopefully, we'll see some more liquidity flocking in there that may mitigate some of the lingering issues and concerns we've had with it, in which case it does make it an attractive thing again. I may have to withdraw some of my criticism in the past where I just thought it was just a garbage thing that only Dave wanted to trade. But now these days it has a little bit more value, and I should say, and by value I mean potential to go nowhere to the dark side. All right, let's go here. Let's wrap it up because we gotta get to the crystal ball too. Let's wrap it up with this one here from got good handles this week. Bistro Jack. I like all these handles. Bistro Jack wants to know, you need a segment on crypto volatility. Well, yes, you're right. Crypto was very volatile. In fact, looks like it's getting a little bit of vol juice again. Most of the major cryptos, we got Bitcoin at about 36,000 right now. ETH at 25,000, XRP at about 89 cents. So most of them are off 9 or 10% today. So a little bit of a drubbing. They have been rallying over the course of this week. Bitcoin hit about 31,000 and change. XRP hit about 1,800 there. So we saw them sell off pretty aggressively, then rebound just as quickly as well. So there has been a lot of vol out there. But if you want a crypto vol segment, I'll do you one better, Bistro Jack. We have a whole show about crypto vol. It's on every Monday. It's on after the option block. It's called the Crypto Rundown. We spend a whole hour talking about this. So you get more than just a segment. You get a whole hour to talk about ETH vol, Bitcoin vol, all the other fun stuff. You want to talk some Dogecoin? Sure, we get that in there too. Why not? Great guests breaking down the world of crypto derivatives. So if you're intrigued by that stuff, the SKEW, the volatility, the OI, all that stuff, and a whole bunch more, check out the Crypto Rundown. You can get it on this network. So if you're listening to Vol Views, if you subscribe to the whole network, you already get it. If you're just listening to Vol Views, just make sure you get the whole network. You'll get everything. And then you get more than just 10 minutes. You get an hour. So there you go. That's why we don't do a lot of crypto on this show. Once in a while we do, like last week with Russell we did, because it was inescapable. But outside of that, you got a whole show devoted to it. So hopefully you're checking that out. Bistro Jack and everyone else out there who's perhaps getting a little bit attracted by the vol out there in crypto these days. Now it's time for us to keep on rolling. It is time to get difficult. It is time to get dangerous. It is time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, let's see where we stand here as we come into the end of the show. Crystal ball, of course, that portion of the show where we get dangerous. We try to predict where vol will be this time next week. And none of us had the extent of the vol decimation that went on this week in our predictions. I was the lowest at an 18 double, and we are not there. Spikes is almost exactly 2 points below. It's at a 1658. Let's just see. I want to see if we got no, we didn't get into flirted with it. I don't think we got to 1609 out there. Let's see. In VIX Cash. I was hoping we'd get to the 15 handle, maybe even by the end of the show. I had about a 16 or so in VIX Cash. So, spoiler alert, none of us had it. Mr. Rhodes, a.k.a. Once and Future Dr. VIX, was at a 19, so he was even higher than me. And Mr. Meatball last week was at a 2020. So, he was feeling a little bit of upside. Everyone thought we might get that pop that would restore some of the vol. We never got that this week, so the erosion just kept kicking in. Our listeners were also feeling some upside. We had guesses up there of like 23 and change from our audience last week as well. So a lot of people were feeling upside last week. I was not, but I was not feeling enough downside to be the winner. So fast forward to now where we have no winner. That means Mr. Dave, our guest, you get the pride of place, sir. You get to go first. What are you feeling for this time next week?
Well, I can see why you guys had higher numbers last week. We did have a couple little pops in the VIX last week during the week, which I could see. Well, I'm going to roll with the trend and say 1550. So 15.5 is my guess.
1550. We should add another wrinkle to this these days and add what percent move are we going to see in UVXY and VXX to this? That's even almost more difficult these days. How much are those freaking things going to move is the question. You said 1550, Dave?
Yes, please.
1550 for Mr. Shortvall. All right, since I was closest, even though it doesn't count, only 2 points away, she'll go next. And let's see, I was at an 18 double last week. We're about exactly 2 points shy of that. And Spike's about 2.5 points shy of that in VIX Cash. You know, we have the long weekend now, so that's already in there. So that shouldn't really impact us listeners. The question now is, will we continue this trajectory, or will the typically inevitable shock come in that will bounce us back up a little bit? And if that happens, when does it occur? Does it occur right as we open on Tuesday and then kind of come back off? Or does it occur, let's say, right before the show next Friday, in which case all bets are off? So yeah, that's the difficulty. Where and when will the spike be, and how long will it last? That is the question I am wrestling with right now. So 16 half in spike, 16 about even in VIX Cash. This is one of these ones. I don't have much confidence this week, listeners. I felt pretty good on the 18 double last week, but as we all saw, that was not the case. I'm going to say not that far from where we are right now. I'm going to split the uprights between the two. I'm going to say 16.25, so about a quarter of a point lower on spikes and about quarter point higher on VIX. We could, of course, see more erosion throughout the early part of the week. I think something is going to happen. Something's going to conspire to get us right back to where we are right now. All right, Mr. Meatball, there's your market so far. 15 half on the bottom, 16 quarter on me. Are you going crazy 20 handle again? Are you going 14 handle? What are you feeling next week?
Well, what I'll say is that worked. My book is short vol, so betting against it worked really well.
Yes, you're fading all your book. I know.
I'm fading my book. So I'm going to go, let's see. I'm going to go 1919.
A terrible year for the world, but a good, perhaps, prediction for the Meatball. So there we go, a little bit higher there, which perhaps shows the extent of how short Mr. Meatball is these days. We know he's got those Jan 5 puts. But it has been the week for short vol there. So 1919 on the upside, Mr. Meatball playing the Dr. Vix role this week, followed by 16.25 for me and a 15.5, predictably on the downside there, for Mr. Short Vol, a.k.a. Mr. Dave. All right, everybody. That music means we come to the end of another fun sojourn through the world of volatility. We talk spikes, we talk VIX, we talk the futures, we talk the options. Got a lot more into your favorite ETPs, VXX, even UVXY, making it onto the show this week, courtesy of our friend, Mr. Dave. See, when he shows up and when UVXY reverse splits, we get to talk about it a little bit. Also talked about a bunch of your questions and a whole bunch more. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's see what everybody has cooking that may interest you. Let's start with you, Mr. Dave. You did an able job in the MIAX hot seat this week. If folks want to check out your content when they're not listening to Vol Views, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
Sure. Check me out on YouTube under David Lincoln, or you can hit me up on Twitter under The Famous Dave, Famis Dave.
Not Vol Crush anymore on YouTube?
No, I switched it to David Lincoln. Rebranding.
I can't keep up with your handles. You had the Short Vol Show, then you had Vol Crush, and now it's just David Lincoln. Okay, there we go. Look for that, listeners out there. We'll put a link in our show notes, and you should have seen his handle. We've been tweeting it out throughout the show as well. And Mr. Meatball, if folks want to talk to you about Jan 5 puts in UVXY or anything else in the vol space, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, go to optionpit.com. I write a volatility newsletter every day. So it's good, actionable content. Come optionpit.com, and then if you look under publications, you'll see the VIX Edge. That is my daily resource for what's happening in the VIX space.
And speaking of what's happening, if you want to find out that stuff, first you want to go to all things spikes, MIAXoptions.com/spikes for all the data, all the cool stuff, links to a cool show called Vol Views. Then also make sure, if you're not checking it out, check out MIAX.shiftsearch.com. That's that cool tool John was on here talking about a few weeks ago. Every Friday, they upgrade it with new functionality. They just added the meme stocks not too long ago. I'll have to see what they added today, what the cool new wrinkle is, but it's cool stuff. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. AMC lighting it up again today. Go figure out there. But it's a great tool. It's completely free. If you're not using it, you are a silly person. MIAX.shiftsearch.com. It's only going to get cooler out there, listeners. And of course, you know where to go if you want the latest on execution services and trading technology. None other than MatrixExecutions.com. Matrix, MATRIX, executions.com. Also give them a follow on the old Twitters while you're at it. They are at just MatrixEX Tech, all one word, on Twitter, MatrixExecutions.com. On behalf of the folks over there at Matrix and everybody over there in MIAX land and Mr. Short Vol /Vix Crush /Famous Dave /Dave Lincoln and Mr. Meatball and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, and subscribing. Thanks for everyone who joined us this week. A momentous week here on the network. Remember, we're off Monday, so no option block, no crypto, but we're back on Tuesday and we're kicking off the pro content on Tuesday. So get those questions ready, listener. Whatever the hell topic you want, we're probably gonna have some good stuff talking about trade structure on that first Q&A. So get your questions in about how things should perform, how you should structure certain things. I think we're gonna be diving into that on the Tuesday session. We're gonna make that open to everybody so you could all check out what it is. And then beyond that, it's for the pro folks only, exclusive. And then, of course, on Friday, we're going to bring back options oddities, all sorts of other fun stuff. Check it out. TheOptionsInsider.com/shop is the place to go. This, of course, concludes our broadcast week for this week, but we're back with more fun next week. Kicks off on Tuesday, all the way through till Friday, another episode of Volatility Views.
Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest, most efficient trading platforms in the world. MIAX is proud to bring you Spikes Volatility products. Spikes options and futures are traded on the Spikes Volatility Index, SPIKE, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction, all for ultra-low exchange fees. It's volatility reimagined. Learn more about Spikes at MIAXoptions.com/spikes. Options and futures involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. Volatility Views is also brought to you by Matrix Executions, LLC, an agency broker-dealer focused on best execution and trading workflow automation. A technology-driven firm, Matrix is led by trading pioneers with decades of experience designing and building best-in-class solutions for options markets. Matrix connects to all domestic exchange venues and multiple international exchanges and serves both institutional and individual clients. For more information on Matrix Executions, LLC, please visit matrixexecutions.com. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.